I forget, in the early 80s when I got into radio, there was a guitarist who told me that, and I can't remember who it was, that he suffered from lead guitar disease, which is basically always having a guitar in his hand. I'll explain how Daryl Sturmer of Genesis and of the Phil Collins Band did the same thing to Derry Graham in this clip. But there's something about Derry coming up with all these interesting riffs that he does. He's like Steve Lukather in that way. We talk about guitar playing a lot more with Derry. Honeymoon Suite on Rock History Canada. How do you come up with these licks? I mean, I know it's a mother statement. It's a cliche question. I asked Daryl Sturmer, who plays with Phil Collins in Genesis, once. I said, "Well, where did it come from?" He said, "Well, I'm always diddling around." And what about for you?
Same thing, man. It's a guitar player disease, you know. I get up in the morning usually, and the first thing I do is just pick up a guitar and noodle away. Watch the news or something, and just let my hands warm up, and not even thinking about this. I'll do some exercises or some scales or something, and out of that a riff will pop its head out, or a chord change, and that's all I need to get started. And if that could be a great chorus, so then I'm off to the races with that one. But it's like that guy said, it's just practicing and playing, which I do every day for hours and hours if I can, and things just pop out.
What are your favorite guitars?
Well, I've got the tread guitar that people started seeing on the third album. I've got a signature model. If I can do a shameless plug now, with my tread guitar, which I've got right here.
Yeah, please.
Show it to you. So this is because I'm in my room, so they're all down here. So this is the original one. You can see how beat up it is, and this is the one I've had forever. Okay, from the 80s.
Yeah,
and that's one of my favorite. That's my old mutt. But from that, Godin approached me a few years ago, and I now have a signature model of that guitar, which they're newer, but they're beautiful. So I use those on the road. My favorite guitar, was that the question?
well, any of your favorite guitars? Yeah.
Any of my favorite guitars. I've got a whole bunch, but I think one of my gems is I got a 75 Les Paul, 76 Les Paul Custom. That weighs a ton, but it's probably the best sounding guitar I have. And I've got a PV Wolfgang, the first one that Eddie did with PV way back when he first left Kramer and started that PV Wolfgang, which is a really crazy design. I bought one. I've had it for like 26 years, and it's a gorgeous guitar.
Through your life, who has surprised you the most when you met a person? And I'm not only looking for salacious stuff here. Is there someone you met and you go, well, that was a pleasant surprise, or what the heck? Or is there anybody who surprised you the most through the years?
Well, I've met a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, geez, just people you'd never thought you would meet. Like, for example, our first American tour was with Jethro Tull in 1983, 84, from the first album. And I grew up listening to Jethro Tull as a kid. And I thought, they were this heavy, cool prog rock band. And Ian Anderson kind of scared me, when you watched him and listened to him. But then we get on the road with them, and him and Martin Barr, the guitar player, nicest English dudes ever. Once you actually meet them, they're very, very nice, very intelligent guys. I guess the other big meeting I had was meeting Eddie Van Halen one day at the airport in Toronto, just walking by me, and we stopped and had a quick chat, and he was very gracious, very, very nice. Didn't tell me to F off, but he was nice, gracious enough to talk to me for a few minutes, and then off he goes. So it's cool that people are like that, because I try and be like that too. This don't be a dick. That's the phrase, don't be a dick to people, because those people are there. They're the reason that you are doing what you do. They're just, They're fans.
Is there anything that makes you nervous before you get on stage? You still have a little bit of that because some people say that's healthy, but is there anything that makes you nervous?
Well, just I hope my rig doesn't shut down. That's the worst, when shit is not working. That's disappointing because there's not a lot you can do and you're in front of thousands of people. But usually that doesn't happen. And if it does, I just keep smiling, whatever. You know, if it goes down, I'll just plug straight into an amp without any effects. I don't give a shit because people don't know. The audience doesn't know. It's all in your hands and you're playing anyways, but there's always a bit of nervousness, and that's good. But once I get out there and you look at people in the front row and they're singing along, we're all one.
As a son of a drummer who was a lot better than me, he learned a long time ago that when he was embarrassed, and sometimes you don't know. I said, well, that fill you were going to do, no one knows you were going to do that fill. It's not a cover. No one knows. You're the only one who knows you made a mistake. But certain things would get to, he's 20 now. And he would say, one day he came up to me, he says, when he was quite young, he says, all those embarrassing moments, that made me work really, really hard. Whenever I make a mistake, he says, those are the points that almost inspired me. What was it for you as a guitarist? Are there points where certain things, moments in the road, crossroads that make you work harder when you were growing up?
Well, yeah. I mean, just you're only as good as your last show. And I always want to be better than my last show, a better player. I think I'm a better player now than I was 10 or 20 years ago because I work at it really hard because I still am inspired and I love to do it. And there's so many great players out there now that we're out and we're doing gigs with them, and I want to be up to snuff. I'm not going to try and be those kind of players, but I want to be as good as I want to be the best that I am, do what I do and do it as best I can.
Two versions of Love Changes Everything and New Girl Now. Digging it, man.
Yeah, cool. That's something we did in the initial sessions when we first started recording, when we were doing our bed tracks. Mike, again, the producer, said, well, while we're all here and set up, it's always good to have some re-records and some bonus tracks down the line for different markets. So we went out and cut a few of the older songs, and now we've got them in our back pocket, and we put two of them on this new record in Canada. And it just sweetens the pot, gives people more to listen to. And somebody gets the record and they're not familiar with the early Honeymoon Suite. They got, a couple of great songs from the earlier era that they can dig. And plus, we own the master.
That first album, man, you're like the master. You're like doing it all. You're writing. You are such a big influence, of course, in the band throughout the history. And I know how much you've written. But New Girl Now, speaking of stalking, was that based on anything?
No, not really. Not when I wrote it. It just kind of came to me. But I had just got out of a relationship and moved away to college. So yeah, it was based in fact to some degree.
And the video that main girl that's stalking Johnny, did you guys know her or was that just an actress?
No, that was an actress hired for the video. Yeah. No, she was an actress.
Was it Paul Jansen released, I forget what it was called, where he has all the girls in a hotel room, and my friend Steve, who gave me the Dave Betts interview, he said, Paul Jansen said, we got the A-list girls. So Wave Babies, when I saw that, by the way, look, they got all the A-list girls on the beach. What the hell?
Yeah, that was a casting call. We were on the road at the time, and it was at the Diamond Club in Toronto, apparently, and management put out the word, we're casting for the new Honeymoon Suite videos. We need beach girls, and everybody just showed up, and apparently had tons of girls come out, and that's where they got them from.
Every Little Tear, that's what it was. Paul Jansen, Every Little Tear. He had told Steve, he says, well, I'm finally, and that was one of his last ones before he left the business, but he said, I finally reached the big time. I've got the A-list girls. So there you go.
Yeah, I tell you, man, put the word out, and every girl wants to be in a video. Casting call.
There are websites. There are websites about the girl in the video.
Oh, really?
I do a lot of Toto. I know the guys in Toto. Through the years, I've gotten to know them. You know how it is. Radio guys don't get to know always the people they interview. It's rare. But the Toto guys, they were telling me that there are sites about the girls in Toto videos. Yeah, people do that.
Well, why not?
I look at your songs from album to album, and I know people. I mean, I went to Rush once, and I remember going. I wasn't a Rush fan. I am now, and I remember thinking everything sounds the same. And I remember telling myself that's what you say when you're uneducated towards a band, right? But with Honeymoon Suite from album to album, I always found. When I was thinking of you and Johnny of going, oh, it's Honeymoon Suite. They've just gone to another room. They've gone to another room. They can't. You know, it still has the sound of Honeymoon Suite, but it's almost like you're doing it from another room. Different producer, different time in your life, right? When you wrote throughout those years, how conscious were you of going, this has got to sound like Honeymoon Suite, or is that just natural the way you write?
It's whatever comes out. Yeah. It's whatever the mood I'm in. I mean, wherever the song takes me, they all probably start as a guitar riff or a chord.
Yeah.
And the luxury we have with our band is that we're not pigeonholed into, like, if it's a metal album, every song's got to be metal, or AC/DC, they're all very cohesive in their songs. We have the luxury of doing an album that has Burning in Love on it, but also Wave Babies and Funny Business, which are all different songs, but yet they all fit the mold and they suit Johnny's voice. So I love that about our band. It affords me some flexibility to bring some when we put an album together, because when I put an album on, I don't want to hear 8 of the same track, basically. I want to hear a variety. I want it to take me different places, like you say, different flavors. Yeah. So that's what we try and do.
Yeah. Why did Ray leave the first time? Did he just want to do his own thing? I know he came back, but why did he?
Ray was really unhappy he did not like the management or the manager. And exactly. He thought that he could do better on his own. He got to a point where he thought, well, I'm kind of semi-famous. I don't need this now. I can go and I'm sure I'll get in another band and do all this other stuff. And I think he made a huge mistake. Yeah. But, you can't stop somebody who's not happy. And I don't want them there if they're not happy. So, Ray's his own. I think that he wanted to be more in charge of things. And, maybe we would have started butting heads eventually, because Ray's a great writer. But he's a keyboard player and going off in a different direction than I wanted to.
I remember I was interviewing Glass Tiger in Toronto. They were doing a photo shoot or a video. I forget. I was so young and scared. It doesn't matter. And I was interviewing their drummer. They were all doing stuff, and he came over and he says, "Well, I'm going to leave the band." Going, the first album. You probably know the guy. I forget his name.
Michael Hansen. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember going, "Are you crazy?" I mean, and I was really scared during that interview because I'd never done it on person. I was like maybe 24. And he says, "Yeah, I'm going to leave the band, do my own thing." I'm going, what the hell? And as you can imagine, you run into it. I run into it all the time of being with people, and I'm having to ask a musician, "Do you regret that move?" Because and listen, I just interviewed John Anderson, Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull, Steve Hackett, formerly of Genesis, and I asked him, "Why do you guys not get along?" Like, not quite like that, but you and Johnny have been together, and now Dave is back. You guys have been together a long time.
Yeah, well, as far as guys leaving the band, I mean, you have to understand that you probably get one shot at it in this business, one chance. So you don't get 2 or 3. Some people do. So when it's your shot, you just better, stick it out and don't like Michael Hansen leaving that band after one album. Again, that's crazy. You have your opportunity and you think the grass is greener, but it's not. But anyways, you can go on all day about that.
Yeah.
But as far as us, again, we got lucky with the personalities. Dave and Gary did leave for a while in the 90s when things were, the 90s came along and killed melodic rock, bands like us. So we had to lay low for many years. Johnny and I always kept it together. But then we had these side guys and we were playing gigs and they were really good players, but it wasn't the same. They didn't play the songs just exactly the same. So at some point I said to Johnny, let's try and get Dave and Gary and Ray back. Let's try and put it back together, because I saw a lot of these other bands the original guys. I'm all about being a band, and we have a thing, a sound that we make when it's only the five of us or the four of us on stage. We've had other players, but it's never the same. So they came back. It's been that way for like, I don't know, 10, 15 years now. And nobody's thinking of leaving, and we're happy. So it's chemistry and friendship. And you wouldn't believe, especially me and Johnny, after 35 years. Crazy. I know.
Yeah. What was your first impression of him when you met him, Johnny?
Well, he's this young, cocky Italian guy with, the long hair and the tight pants and the Capezio shoes. And I remember him coming to pick me up at my girlfriend's apartment. And I opened the door, and he's standing there. It's like, let's go. Come on, let's go. Let's go to rehearsal. Let's go. Just cocky and, Italian.
That wasn't that video in Niagara Falls? Wasn't that the video in Niagara Falls, if I remember correctly? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you throw some. Oh, she throws Johnny. Isn't that the one where the lady throws Johnny over the? That's right. The one.
Pushes him over the falls, and if you could see below his waist, he was so strapped into those guardrails. What you can't see is that there's no way he was going over there.
So that was real. That wasn't a trick of the camera. He was really right there.
He was sitting on the guardrail right over the falls. Yeah, if he'd fallen and he'd be dead. But below his legs, below the knees, were all strapped to the things. There's no way that he would have fell. Are you kidding me?
Lead singer. He's just a lead singer. Come on. No. Yeah. Tell me about that tune. Great tune. Stood the test of time again. On Spotify, it's right up there.
Again, I think I wrote that before I joined Honeymoon Suite. I was listening to a lot of Rainbow, because I said Deep Purple earlier, and I love Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, Joe Lynn Turner, that whole period there. Love that stuff. So I remember I've been kind of sad there, because I think I just got dumped by a girl, and listening to that record and Stone Cold and all that. And I think out of that came Burning in Love. Just because it's in D and it's a rock song. I remember writing it in the basement of this apartment I was living in Toronto. I remember the room, and demoing it on a little 4-track recorder with a cassette in it. It came out of a breakup when you listen to lyrics.
Yeah. Well, Randy Bachman, a couple of years ago, he came into the studio here in Calgary, and he said, Lenny Bro had told him, he talks about Lenny a lot. He said, you will never be the greatest guitarist. There'll always be another guy better, but you got to write songs. At what point did you realize, considering how top heavy you are with writing for this band, when did you realize it, or did you just write because you had the songs?
Why did I write?
Yeah, you wrote. Obviously you're very prolific as a writer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I've always wanted to be a songwriter. I love playing guitar, and through guitar I could write songs. Ever since I started playing, when I wrote my first song, I was just, so excited about that. And I don't know, I just always wanted to write songs as good as the ones that the people that I loved, made. It's like, I want to do that too. So it was just a passion from early on. And to me, in this business, the more boxes you can check.
Yeah.
If you're, there's a million amazing guitar players out there that can play circles around me. But to play guitar was not enough. You've got to me, and I tell my daughter this, be a songwriter, because there's your longevity. You may not be an artist forever, but you can be a writer, and there's, with publishing, that can be your retirement fund there if you get a couple of big hits. Be a producer. Be a business person, especially these days. Check all the boxes. And these days, a musician's got to be a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, why was it on the first album that were you just the guy who was writing so much? How did the songs get? We're going to pick Derry's song. How did that happen?
Well, I was the only one really that had them. Johnny had written songs before with another band he was with, and some early Honeymoon Suite stuff, but they weren't as strong or as what Honeymoon Suite was doing. They were more of just a rock and roll type song, and I think mine probably had a little more were better with the choruses, or a little more radio ready. Mm-hmm. So I just, by the time I joined Honeymoon Suite, I had New Girl Now and a couple others, And then we got our record deal, and it's like, okay, Derek, can you go write 5 or 6 more? We're doing an album. So I pulled it together really fast, and we wrote. I was writing on the road right before the deal because we were doing a lot of 6-nighters, and so sitting around shitty hotel rooms up in Sudbury for a week, during the day, I would spend my days just the guitar and just writing songs.
Remember, if you want to support the channel, it's been a crazy time for all our channels in the last little while. And that's one of the reasons we ask for support, because YouTube's revenue lately has been insane to a point where we actually thought of quitting. So if you want to support the channel, there's a PayPal link in the description. You can join our Patreon. You'll get early access to our videos. And we have a swag store where you can buy Rock History Canada, Rock History Book, or Rock History Music t-shirts, hats, all kinds of clothing. Subscribe to our channel, share our videos, comment on them, and like them. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Canada.